a nie Państwa, na warsztatach tłumaczenia prowadzonych przez profesora Nicka Montforta. Myślę, że jest to postać, której w większości z obecnych tutaj nie trzeba poprawiać, ale dla tych, którzy jeszcze nie wiedzą, pokrótce Nick Montfort jest profesorem wykładającym na MIT, gdzie prowadzi lab Tank, w którym prowadzi badania między innymi nad związkami literatury i komputerów. Posiada duże archiwum różnych starych platform z dziełami literackimi, które możemy odtwarzać, a oprócz tego zajmuje się twórczością poetycką, ale nie jest to twórczość poetycka w tradycyjnym sensie, ponieważ wykorzystuje do jej tworzenia programy komputerowe i to właśnie taką poezją dzisiaj będziemy się zajmować.
Thank you, Ola. We're going to talk about and work on literary translation of computational work today, computational literary work. It would be nice, of course, to be able to center our attention on the cinematic screen, but we don't have Douglas Engelbart's mother of all demos to show you today. We don't have Steve Jobs' talk at Macworld. The work that we're going to do really is going to happen on your computers here. And so what I want us to do is have a discussion of some of the challenges that arise in addition to standard questions of literary translation. Some of the questions that are related to code, to computation, and to the functioning, to the working of pieces of digital poetry and digital work. Now, I have a few things to share with you, and I will, whether we get the screen back or not, I'll tell you some about a project that Piotr and I have done to translate a short piece, and some other work that's ongoing in my lab, the Trope Tank at MIT, to translate work into English. I have a project, the Renderings project, in which we're focused on bilingual work that includes English, or multilingual work that includes English, and literary translation into English. There's much more of the small amount of translation that there is of work that begins in English and then is translated into other languages. And we want to experience some of the richness, some of the experimentation, some of the cultural engagement that comes from having literary translation of the sort that we do in bookstores and libraries. So I'm going to ask you to go to nickm.com, my website, and to operate some of the programs there, and to begin work, hopefully with others, translating poems in the PPG 256 series. So if you see on the left side, there's several ways to get to PPG 256, but on the left side of the screen, if you go down to the green on black icon that has various code, text, and you click on that, you'll see a very simple page like this one, PPG 256 series. So if you, for instance, select the text that begins, that's underneath PPG 256.1, just select that line, it's a long wrapped line, beginning with Perl, okay? And then if you open a terminal window, this will work on a Unix-like system on a Macintosh, or someone else is so fortunate as to be running Linux. If you just take that text and paste it into the terminal. Do you know what I mean by terminal? You can find it probably using the Polish word for terminal by going up to the magnifying glass using the search function.
And then the word in for terminal.
What's it called?
Terminal. So in English I wrote terminal.
It's apparently.
And then there you go.
Quite
That's
similar.
terminal.
Okay.
Oh yeah, it's in fact identical.
Yeah. That line into the terminal. Let me show you just. I'll show you what it should look like. Right? You have that line pasted in.
So just search, yeah.
If you yes. and if you're lucky enough to have Cygwin and Active Perl installed on your Windows machine, you also will be in good shape to run this. All right, and then press Enter, and this program will begin running. That's one of the 7 programs and poems in the PPG 256 series, and I present this, I read from it. It's producing a text that is English-like in most cases. In some cases, it's actual English words. And you can look at the other. You can break the program with Command C on a Mac or Control C.
To copy.
No, to interrupt the program, to break it. So if you're in the terminal there, let's see here. Did we? Scroll down. No. Let's see here. Oh, it's actually Control C. Yeah, it's Control C. Yeah. So what I'd like for you to do, hopefully working with someone else, is to see about translating these works into Polish. I would, or you can choose another language if you like. I don't think that we'll get any one of these done in 2 hours. And my goal here is for us to encounter some interesting issues and questions in translation about what it means to translate a work like this. So the uninteresting problems that you might encounter are, I can't get it to run in the first place. Well, okay, that doesn't help very much in trying to start on a translation. But the interesting questions you might encounter are, how does the code need to be different to account for a different language? How does code size, 256 characters, relate? How should that restriction be relaxed or maintained in a translation? And even the question of, should we make some friendlier, nicer version of this for the web, for instance, so that we don't have to go through this intricate, elaborate process? Of course, if we did that, then what's called PPG 256, Perl Poetry Generator in 256 characters, right, would probably need to be called something else if we didn't have something that was in Perl. But actually, if we use JavaScript instead, for instance. All right, so take a look at some of these others. You can run any of them just by copying them and pasting them into the terminal. And when you want to start working on a translation, you can simply open a text editor. So let me ask, of these 6, does anyone want to express interest or curiosity about any one of these 7 programs in the PPG 256 series? Some of us, I had a chance to look at them already.
Mechanics of Perl in this, or is that part of the job?
So no, I don't expect. Some people also are familiar with Perl. I've done some programming in Perl, and others not at all. But for instance, if you begin to change the text strings that are there in this line, in this short program, right, you can see what happens from that perspective. Now, this is a computer program, and obviously it wouldn't hurt to have expertise in the programming language. But you don't have to have a background in order to understand some about how it works. All right. Besides 1, 5, and 7, what are there some others? Which is there one that you're looking at? What's that?
No, I like 6.
6. Okay.
I think we will change. So inside, so my guess is that this means select something from here. Typically,
and do you have?
I'm thinking of doing 2. I have no idea what it is yet.
Okay.
But I've just installed Active Perl and I should be.
Okay. You can also, you two can work together if you like. So.
This is an operator, but I don't know yet. Together.
Really are.
So I'm assuming that everything that's come before this gets
right,
put
which is the
together.
second one.
And then I don't know if
Now
this
those are a statement that's a little bit aggressive, like something that like maybe an etymological or explicit meaning
Which really
addressed
does mean choose
to a
something out of
man.
there or something from inside the quotation.
Yeah, bato is a
The space also means something like power.
yes, they're all words that you would use, you know, in a nice context for someone you liked. But in this case, they're meant to sound maybe more aggressive, and you don't. And of course, you can't really understand what it is the person is asking of you or what they're demanding of you.
Okay. But first, I don't understand the
If you look at this line here, right, you'll see that they begin with that there's at the beginning we have several of these letters. So you can see how the word is constructed from two parts. I think I can't see this very well here, right? But it's so
Okay,
to jest jakieś takie to, co jest jakoś tam. Nie,
special characters are one of the issues that obviously we'll encounter very early. The second program here, one of the things that I've done in working with it is when I created the first program, I wanted to create a very, very large program. Okay. But it was okay with me. Yes? Okay.
/0.
Okay.
Yeah. And it appears to have left a space in the text. The text did have put, and instead of the word variable, there's text. Well, that's good that we got that.
I'm not sure we are doing the right thing.
We don't know what the right thing is yet.
I don't know the right thing because
Here's one of the things we've been doing. So it's 2 pages. This is not a page spread actually. This is the recto. This is the verso. But actually, it is that way. And so this is the way that this program was first published. Was first introduced. You are given it in Amiga magazine from 1993. You have to type it in. It's a basic program. You can run it, and it will produce communist speeches. Okay, and so one of the things that we did first is to just port this program. So our goal is to give people access to this type of work. So if we just translated it, but you still had to have an Amiga and type it in, you know, very few people would do that. We wouldn't experience the work. And so even though it's quite specific to this Amiga context, we decided to take it out of that context and to port it to the web. And this is a JavaScript implementation of the same process. And you can read these speeches. You can just reload the page or click on the link. Plan to do also is that since we have this Polish port, right, we'd like to make all the variable names, the function and method names, you know, appropriate Polish names, so that we welcome people who are engaging with Polish language work to also modify and work with and transform and remix, you know, something like this.
You can see, for example, how to translate in English szmaciak.
Yes. How to?
What did you put? Do you remember?
Which is this?
Szmaciak. Comrade szmaciak.
Oh yes, well, that we actually changed that one. We changed. So we had Ragson originally, but that was too much of an in-joke, I think. Okay. So we've actually we changed this one. Yes man, comrade yes man. Yes. So the yes man is the corporate figure who is always, you know, saying yes to his boss. And again, not exactly. It's a little bit of a contrast to the communist context, but it's the same type of figure. It's the party figure. Japanese is a very homophonous language because they took their writing system from Chinese, so it has a lot of distinctions and you know, a lot of finesse, but they don't have any of the tones from Chinese. So the way, I mean, it's the same thing if you go to a Japanese restaurant and ask for sake. They could give you salmon, or they could give you something to drink, because they're both pronounced the same way. But in writing, they're different. The kanji for these are not the same. So there's no ambiguity when things are written down.
No i ten.
It's number 5.
Okay.
The problem is that I think the Dada Manifesto hasn't been, surprisingly, hasn't been translated into Polish. So
It's never too late. Who knows what might happen?
yeah, well, that is something we could do in the future, but for now there's nothing. The English poem makes a reference to the English translation, whereas in Polish there is no Polish translation to refer to its roots, but an empty reference.
Okay. This would actually be an issue, right? Is it more important to keep the original code size, or is it more important to, and, you know, even if it means throwing out one of the literary movements that's mentioned, or should you? And are some of these going to be easier to do in 256 characters, and some of them going to be harder? And so will that influence the, you know, the difference? There'll be a greater difference in the operation of some of them in another language.
Hey Nick, I've got a question about the Pro language.
Yes?
Could we save characters without cutting a movement? Because we're going to have to adapt. We're going to have to add different cases, right? So knowing that we have to add more characters means we have to cut them from someplace else. But is it so concise? Are the operations so concise that we can't alter them in any way?
They're pretty concise, but they're not. I think they're not easily compacted further. Because I wrote, in some cases, I did go back and I actually revised this to work with Perl 514. And when I did that, I found in a few cases like, oh, actually, I can make this, you know, 2 or 3 characters shorter. So I discovered that possibility, but not like
Not enough to
15 characters shorter, right? So
Yeah.
I mean, so I think it's a question. And should it be called, like, do you want to call it, you know, PPG 300 or something like that? You know, would you rename it? Because actually the size constraint is mentioned in the name of the series. You know. So
We've been working with PPG 7, and we've got whole paragraphs, right?
We also chose it because we thought it would be easiest to identify the outputted language from the functional language, because it actually makes sense. Like I can look at the string and see where the words are.
yeah.
So we thought that would be the easiest way to start the deduction process.
Yeah,
Because we don't understand Perl. So we played with it a little and discerned what we could take out, and then we just started translating, and we only made it through one translation before we understood it would be impossible to keep with the constraint and also render the sense.
Raont, jeżeli po chęc, orna po miki, mowa po byłem, widy po było, po tyzy, ja od żeja. W każdym razie dużo mniej sensu niż po angielsku. Dokładnie.
There's a lot less sense.
Yes. Is it obscene?
A bit, yes. It sounded a bit. Some of it sounded like old old Slavic language.
Is it a better idea to translate something like this, or any of the PPG 256 programs, or why don't you just go write your own Perl programs that are 256 characters long in Polish or whatever language, and say that, well, the form is interesting to me, thank you, for that, but we don't care about trying to imitate, the specific ways that the English language is exploited in Polish. We'd rather just maybe find our own ways of engaging with our own language.